You're not quite Gen X. You're not really a millennial. You're something in between, and you felt it your whole life. You belong to a micro-generation most people don't even know has a name. You had a childhood with no internet, and an adulthood that lives on a screen. You are the last people who will ever remember both. This is the psychology of Xennials. If you were born between about 1977 and 1985, this is you. Too young to be a true Gen Xer, too old to be a real millennial. You're the narrow bridge between them, and for years, you didn't even have a word for it. Now you do. Sociologists call you Xennials. Online, people call you the Oregon Trail generation, after the game you played on a beige computer in a room that smelled like chalk. It sounds like a joke. It isn't. Because that thin sliver of time you were born into did something to the way your mind works that happened to no generation before you, and will happen to no generation after. Let me show you. Start with your childhood. It was completely offline. You memorized phone numbers. There was one telephone attached to the wall, and if a friend's dad answered, you had to talk to him. You made plans in the morning and just showed up. You waited by the radio with your finger on the cassette button to catch your favorite song. You came home to no messages, because messages didn't exist. When the streetlights came on, you went home. That was the whole system. And here's the part that matters. Nobody was watching. Your childhood wasn't filmed or posted or saved. It lives only in your memory. You are part of the last generation on Earth whose entire childhood was private. And think about the objects. A shoebox of tangled cassette tapes you recorded off the radio, the DJ's voice always clipping the first second of the song. A paper map folded wrong in the glove box. An encyclopedia you actually opened to settle an argument. A busy signal. The sound of a door that was simply closed for now. You knew the weight of a phone receiver in your hand and the exact click of a cassette snapping into place. None of it felt quaint. It was your whole operating system, and you are the last people who will ever have used it for real. And then, right as you were becoming an adult, the whole world changed under your feet. You remember that sound? The screech of a modem connecting. You didn't grow up with the internet. You watched it arrive. As a teenager who had to learn it, you got your first email address in high school or college. You had a whole life before the algorithm. And then, you had to move that entire life onto a screen. That makes you something specific. You're not a digital native. You're a digital immigrant. You learned the online world as a second language, with an accent only you can hear. You can use all of it, but part of you still remembers when none of it existed. And this is what makes your psychology genuinely unique. Not as a figure of speech. Literally. The sociologist who helped name your generation put it simply. You are the only people in history to have had a fully analog childhood and a fully digital adulthood. Sit with that. Your parents grew up analog and mostly stayed there. Your kids were born into the screen and have never known anything else. You are the hinge. The one generation standing with a foot in each world, holding the door open between them. Nobody before you did it. Nobody after you can. So what does living on that hinge do to a person? It makes you strangely adaptable. You can reset a Wi-Fi router and still write a thank you card by hand. You switch between two entire ways of being 100 times a day, and you don't even notice you're doing it. You became the translator without anyone asking. You're the one who sets up your mother's new phone, patiently, for the third time, and then turns around and explains to your kid what a dial tone was, why you couldn't just text to say you'd be late, what it actually meant to be unreachable for an afternoon. You stand between your parents and your children, fluent in both, belonging completely to neither. Unpaid tech support for one generation and a living history museum for the other. Nobody trained you for either job. You just did it because you were the only one in the room who could speak both languages. And it's a strange kind of weight. Being the bridge everyone walks across without noticing there's a person holding it up. But it also leaves you with a quiet feeling you've never been able to name. A low, background nostalgia. Not for your youth exactly, but for a whole world that simply doesn't exist anymore. You remember silence, boredom, being unreachable for an afternoon, and some part of you misses it even while you scroll. If any of this is hitting a nerve, stay with me, because in a minute, I want to name the specific loneliness of being the bridge and the reframe that turns it from a burden into something you'd never give back. If this is the first time someone's put words to a feeling you've carried for years, subscribe. It really does help the right people find this. Now, back to it. Here's the lonely part nobody talks about. You don't fully belong to either side. Around Gen X, you're the soft one who actually likes technology. Around Millennials, you're the old soul who remembers rotary phones and means it. Your references land halfway. Half the room gets the joke, half just stares. And there's a deeper version of it. You're raising children who will never know the world that made you. They'll never wait for anything. They'll never be bored in the exact way that built your imagination. You're trying to hand down a childhood you can't recreate in a world that deleted the conditions for it. That's a quiet kind of loneliness. Remembering something no one around you can. So let me leave you with the reframe. Being caught between two worlds isn't being lost between them. It's being the only one who can move freely through both. You're the translator, the last living memory of how life felt before it was constantly recorded, and fluent enough in the new world to carry that memory forward. That's not a limbo, that's a gift. You're holding a door that's closing behind you, and for one generation only, you get to decide what's worth carrying through it. So carry the good parts across on purpose. The patience, the boredom that turned into imagination, the proof that a life can be full and completely unrecorded. Your kids won't inherit that world, but they can inherit you, the person that world built. That's the memory worth keeping alive. You're not too late for one world or too early for the other. You're the bridge. And a bridge is the only thing that touches both sides. And if some of this stirred something heavier, a loneliness or a grief that's been sitting with you for a while, please don't carry it alone. Talking to someone, a professional or a person you trust, isn't weakness. There are people trained to help wherever you are, and reaching out is always okay. If this put words to something you've always felt, but never quite said, tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if you want more of the mind explained gently, without the jargon, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. You've been carrying more than you know.